Hey guys, Aubrey from the Witchbone here. I know it has been forever since I posted a video, and I was currently doing a series called Tarot in Depth, just kind of touching base on certain tarot lessons that quite a few people ask about. Things like intuitive reading and getting more in depth about the cards in general. So for this episode, I'd like to talk about the court cards, because it seems like no matter if someone is a beginner tarot reader or a professional, we still can agree on one thing, that the court cards are always a little tough. And it's not just the meanings themselves of the court cards, but also how to read them in certain readings. So I'm going to kind of touch base on that and talk about my interpretations of the court cards and how I read with them. And to start off, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about how I read with them before I talk about the Myers-Briggs personalities. The way that I read the court cards varies depending on the reading. So I get that question a lot. Do you attribute the court cards to actual people themselves when you're reading for a querent? Like a person coming into their life or someone that's influencing them? Yes, sometimes. So you can read the court cards and you'll know based on the reading and your supportive cards if it is a person or if it is what your querent is currently embodying or needs to embody, that type of personality, that type of energy, or if you're reading for yourself. You'll know the placement of the card and what type of reading you're doing. It depends on if that is an actual person or if it is an extension of yourself. So I know that's a little complicated, but when you're doing intuitive reading, you need to listen to yourself. So your first impression when you're reading, that's what you want to go with. One of the ways that I explain the court cards is, me personally, I attribute them to the Myers-Briggs personalities. Now, if you don't know what that is, go ahead and look it up. It is a psychiatrist or psychologist, I don't know the difference, but they came up with 16 personalities that they felt people embody. They felt like everyone could fit into these 16 categories. Now, oddly enough, when you look at these 16 personalities, they fit into the 16 court cards so perfectly. And the way that they are determined is by, you'll hear people say that I'm INTP or I'm ENFJ. It's 4 letters, and you have 8 different variations. So you're either E or I, which is extrovert or introvert, and then you are either S or N, which is sensing or intuitive, and then T or F, thinking or feeling, and lastly J or P, which is judging or perceiving. So I'll go ahead and show you more in depth what these are all about. And you can actually, when you look up the Myers-Briggs personality, you can take a quiz online and it'll tell you what you match up as. So, and when you find out what you are, what personality you are, you can see what court card it matches up with and see if that kind of reflects you as a person. So let's go ahead and talk about the court cards more in depth. Okay, so getting more in depth with the Myers-Briggs personalities, we'll go ahead and talk about the possibilities of these personalities. So number 1, we start with our first letter, and there are 4 letters, like I said, that you could be. So number 1, basically, it's if you are an extrovert or an introvert. So whether you could be described as talkative, outgoing, you like to be in a fast-paced environment, you tend to work out ideas with others, you think out loud, you enjoy being the center of attention, then you would be an extrovert. Now, if you could be described as reserved, private, you prefer a slower pace with time for contemplation, you tend to think things through inside your head, or you would rather observe than be the center of attention, then you are an introvert. So number 2, our second letter, would be how you prefer basically to take in information. So we have sensing or intuition. So whether you focus on the reality of how things are, you pay attention to concrete facts and details, you prefer ideas that have practical applications, you like to describe things in a specific literal way, then you prefer sensing, which is an S. So the next one would be intuition. So maybe you imagine the possibilities of how things could be. You notice the big picture. You see how everything connects. You enjoy ideas and concepts for their own sake. And you like to describe things in a figurative, poetic way. Then you would be intuitive. And that would be the letter N. So the next one is how you prefer to make decisions. Do you make decisions in an impersonal way, using logical reasoning? Do you value justice and fairness? Do you enjoy finding the flaws in an argument? Could you be described as reasonable and level-headed? Then you would be thinking. That's a T. And the other one is, do you base your decisions on personal values and how your actions affect others? Do you value harmony, forgiveness? Do you like to please others and point out the best in people? And could you be described as warm and empathetic? Then you would be feeling, and that's an F. And then the last one is basically how you prefer to live your outer life. Do you prefer to have matters settled? Think rules and deadlines should be respected? Prefer to have detailed step-by-step instructions? Do you make plans and want to know what you're getting into? Then you would prefer judging. That is a J. The other one is, do you prefer to leave your options open? Do you see rules and deadlines as flexible? Do you like to improvise and make things up as you go? Are you spontaneous and enjoy surprises and new situations? Then you would be perceiving, and that's a P. So all of these different possibilities, they make up these personalities. So you have to figure out where a person focuses his or her attention, the way a person gathers information, the way a person makes decisions, and how a person deals with the outer world. And that is how you make up your personalities. Now, to connect them to the court cards, I like to describe these. I actually have a kind of a pop culture or cinema deck that I kind of created. And I don't sell it. I basically just took my favorite TV and movie characters and TV and movie moments that really describe the tarot, the major and minor arcana, and the court cards. I just kind of like developed them in a deck so that I could help teach people. I found that it's a really effective way to get people to connect with the meanings better than saying, you know, oh, this card means balance, or that card means temptation, or, you know, it's better if they can connect it with something they know. So while we're going through the court cards, I'm going to go ahead and give you two examples, and they are characters from either movies or television shows. And I'm going to give a male and female example. This is because the court cards are not gendered. The king and queen simply means inner and outer. It's not gendered. So you can have women who embody king court cards and men who embody queen court cards. It's very important to understand that. So that's why I've gone ahead and found a male and female example for every single court that I'll go ahead and share. Quick note about my examples. You'll notice that the examples that I give you of these characters, they're not going to be exactly the same, the male and female version. So for example, the male Queen of Cups is a little different than the female Queen of Cups. And that's just because of the way they express that type of personality. So the Page of Cups is INFP. Introverted, intuitive, feeling, and perceiving. A good example of the Page of Cups would be Rory Gilmore from Gilmore Girls and Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad. The Page of Cups is pure of heart. Their heart is always open, but they are easily persuaded by either side. Now the Knight of Cups is ENFP. It's very similar to the Page of Cups, but they are extroverted. So extroverted, intuitive, feeling, and perceiving. A good example of the Knight of Cups would be Susan Meyer from Desperate Housewives and Peter Parker from Spider-Man. Knight of Cups is your Romeo type. They are the hopeless romantic. Now the Queen of Cups is INFJ. Introverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging. So there's a bit more structure than the Page and the Knight. So a good example of the Queen of Cups would be Jenna Hunterson from Waitress and Luke Danes from Gilmore Girls. Queen of Cups is always the person that people go to tell them their problems and what's going on. They always seem to be a shoulder to cry on. And they are tough on the outside but very soft on the inside. So now we are to the King of Cups, which is ENFJ. Extroverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging. Good example of the King of Cups would be Ricky Fitz from American Beauty and Annie Walker from The Gift. The King of Cups is in total control of his emotion. So we got to remember the kings of all the suits are the fully developed court. They're in control of that element. So someone who can process their feelings in a healthy way, and someone who is not ruled by their emotions. They embrace it. So moving on to Wands, we have Page of Wands, which is ISTP, introverted, sensing, thinking, and perceiving. A good example of the Page of Wands would be John Dunbar from Dances with Wolves and Katie Longmire from Longmire. Page of Wands, like all the other pages, is a bit naive, but they're innocent, and they love finding adventure. They're always ready to seek out the world. The Knight of Wands is ESFP. Extroverted, sensing, feeling, and perceiving. A good example of the Knight of Wands would be Dean Winchester from Supernatural and Gabrielle Solis from Desperate Housewives. The Knight of Wands is always ready for adventure and excitement, and they must have passion in their lives, but they do tend to get swept by it quite a bit. Now the Queen of Wands is ESTP. Extroverted, sensing, thinking, and perceiving. A good example of the Queen of Wands would be Samantha Jones from Sex and the City and Carl Meyer from Desperate Housewives. Queen of Wands types are very flashy and they know what they want. They embody the fire. They work the fire. The King of Wands owns the fire. King of Wands is ENTJ. Extroverted, intuitive, thinking, and judging. These people are excellent leaders. A good example of the King of Wands would be Henry Standing Bear from Longmire and Iggy Threadgood from Fried Green Tomatoes. They never let their faith be wavered. They never let the fire inside of them die, but they never let it control them either. Moving on to the swords, we have the Page of Swords, which is INTP. Introverted, intuitive, thinking, and perceiving. A good example of the Page of Swords would be Sam Winchester from Supernatural and Lorelai Gilmore from the Gilmore Girls. Page of Swords personalities never stop questioning things. They never stop pushing the envelope. They never stop wondering. They never stop thinking. They always want to come up with new ideas, and they always want to move past the norm. The Knight of Swords is ENTP. Extroverted, intuitive, thinking, and perceiving. Very similar to the Page of Swords, but they are more extroverted. A good example of the Knight of Swords would be Wind in His Hair from Dances with Wolves, and Prue Halliwell from Charmed. Knight of Swords are excellent to take to the battle, but they often get swept by their quick decisions. They like to act instead of think. This is someone that you never want to go to battle with. They protect what they hold dear to the death. Now the Queen of Swords is ISTJ. Introverted, sensing, thinking, and judging. A good example of the Queen of Swords would be Gemma Teller from Sons of Anarchy and Mike Ehrmantraut from Breaking Bad. Queen of Swords has seen a lot of shit, and they work with what they know. And they always say, when you meet a Queen of Swords type, you better be prepared, because you might not want to know what they know. The King of Swords is ESTJ. Extroverted, sensing, thinking, and judging. Good examples of the King of Swords is Dr. House from House and Amy Dunn from Gone Girl. King of Swords types use no emotion in their day-to-day life. They are completely logical. These are very intellectual and very dangerous people. There is a lot to learn from King of Swords types. When you're around a King of Swords type, you have to be sure not to take offense, because a lot of the things they say or do, they don't try to tiptoe around your feelings, they just get to the point. But if you can remove yourself from that and just take in what they have to say, they are very insightful people. Now moving on to the Pentacles. The Page of Pentacles is ISFP. Introverted, sensing, feeling, and perceiving. These people will find gold everywhere. A good example of the Page of Pentacles would be Misty Day from American Horror Story Coven and Tom Booker from The Horse Whisperer. Page of Pentacles will always find the good in every situation. The Knight of Pentacles is INTJ. Introverted, intuitive, thinking, and judging. Good example of the Knight of Pentacles would be Walt Longmire from Longmire and Scarlett Marlowe from As Above, So Below. Knight of Pentacles are extremely stubborn, but very persistent. They never give up. They are an excellent person to have on your team because they will not stop until they have it all figured out. The Queen of Pentacles is ISFJ. Introverted, sensing, feeling, and judging. Good example of the Queen of Pentacles is Lynette Scavo from Desperate Housewives and Aidan Shaw from Sex and the City. The Queen of Pentacles work the land, they work the earth. And what I mean by that is they work with the material. They are excellent homemakers, they're excellent career builders, and they are very nurturing, but you can never walk on them. And the King of Pentacles is ESFJ, extroverted, sensing, feeling, and judging. A good example of the King of Pentacles is Walter White from Breaking Bad and Fiona Good from American Horror Story Coven. These people own their empire and they never want to give it up. They enjoy building from their resources and protect it with their life. So hopefully that was helpful for those of us who still find the court cards very confusing. And I think they're supposed to be, because they're not a flat, defined card, all the cards do have a certain depth to them, but I think with the court cards themselves, they're supposed to be so complex, because we do read them several different ways in a deck. So let me know in the comments how you read the court cards, or if this helped you out, and I will see you guys later. Bye!